Today's video is going to be a bit special. We've just released a new game, and I wanted to take the opportunity to make a full read through of what the game is about. This game is called Songs and Sagas. We're labeling it as like a classic OSR reimagined. And what we mean by that is that it has some roots into the OSR or the NSR kind of mentality of gameplay. But what we mean by reimagined is that it is not purely an OSR game. We're taking a bunch of concepts and ideas from story games and collaborative storytelling and all of that, and injecting that into an OSR style of gameplay. Honestly, it's been working so well. We have just released this game. It has stayed at the top of each most popular TTRPGs for around a week. It was play tested for months by over 200 people in our Discord. I'm just very excited to show this to you. And yeah, let's dive in. So if you want to check it out, you can go on songsandsagas.firerpgs.com, or you can search for Songs and Sagas on Google, and you're gonna find it. There are all the links for you to download the PDF. We have also released a creator kit, so it is entirely free. It includes an SRD for the game, and we're currently hosting a game jam as well to encourage people to make either things that are compatible with Songs and Sagas. For example, if you want to make an adventure or map or something for the game, you can do that with the jam. Or you can make something based on the mechanics, games that we call carried in Songs and Sagas. So yeah, let's check it out. There are basically two PDFs. One of them, that's this one. That's the core of the game, right? So this one has 4 panels, 4 pages, but it's basically a single sheet of paper that is meant to be printed at home that you fold in half. You have the character sheet on the outside as a cover with some information about what the setting of the game is, and some game materials, spirit guidelines, GN guidelines, and whatnot. On the back cover, you have the character creation, and on the inside, you have all the rules. So, and then you have a second document, which we call the Songs and Sagas map, which includes some rolling tables, a next map for you to fill in, and some solo mechanics. So let's start with this page. I will read through the entire game, so this video is going to take a while, longer than my usual videos, but it's meant to be a learning exercise for you because everyone learns differently, and I think that this is really going to help some people understand the game better, and also it allows me to blabber a bit about the game. So yeah, let's start. The end was near, our time nearly up, but before the spill of blood, luminous doorways emerged amidst the vast sea. Guided by gods and spirits, our ancestors sailed through these radiant gates into the unknown. Many perished, but some managed to survive and settle. Time passed. Now, some of us are called to venture forth, to map these strange new lands, and one day all shall hear the echoes of our destinies fulfilled as they ring out in Songs and Sagas. This is a very condensed game, and we don't have a lot of time and space to explain the idea behind the setting, which is why we're actually working on an expanded edition, which we're calling Sagas of the 10th Realm, and this is going to be a full-fledged hardcover book. But still, there's a lot of things that we hint at in this paragraph and in the rolling tables across the game. The idea is you are a bunch of Viking type folks, right? Northern warriors of some sort. And you used to live in this world, but the world was coming to an end. What that means is basically up to you. Doors open, portals, and your ancestors passed through those and basically traveled to another realm, another planet. And that planet is full of creatures of unfathomable forms and things that are basically you can't understand. You look at the sky and the sky is at a different color. You look at there are gigantic prisms that are floating into the sky, and there are electrical currents that just go through the clouds, and the creatures they look like nothing as things from our world, right? And in terms of like settings touchstones, you could basically take a look at things like obviously like anything that's like Norse mythology for like the base of like who the characters are, but where they are and their story that they're going to tell or that you're going to tell through them can be inspired by things like, well, the setting is inspired by things like Scavenger's Reign, the TV show that was on HBO, and I think it's coming to Netflix soon. And as well as Horizon Zero Dawn, right? About like people with like relatively primitive means in a world that is both ancient and weird. So we'll talk more about the setting in a bit. In terms of game materials, you will need a standard deck of playing cards, right? So it's an OSR games, and like straight off the bat, we're like, you're gonna need some cards. So like that's what I mean. It's not classic OSR. We're doing some things different, but you're gonna see like it's very interesting what we're able to do with cards in this game. In a general manner, when you reveal a card from the deck, discard it, right? So like you have a deck of playing cards. As soon as a game tells you, you reveal a card from the deck. As soon as it is revealed and you don't use it anymore, like the game is like continues to another mechanic, you take that card, give it away. Like you put it in a discard pile. And you shuffle the discarded pile, the discarded cards, after each scene or whatever the deck is empty, right? What we mean by scene is that like if you're making a scene around the campfire and something, you reveal, like you discard a couple of cards by like doing some rolls in one or rolling on certain tables. Well, rolling on certain tables, you will use a couple of cards, but when the scene is over and you move to a different scene, you take those cards and put them right back into the deck. You'll need a full set of polyhedral dice, so D4, D6, D8, D10, D12, D20. You will need printed copies of this pamphlet, so that's the sheet right here, and one of the map sheets, so that's the other PDF I showed earlier. A couple of friends to play with, or you can play by yourself. This game is solo friendly. Like all the mechanics were designed so that like they are player facing. The GM like rarely rolls. Like they roll for like certain things. Well, no, it's the GM never rolls. They will like ask the player to roll, and even when like they will only roll for when an enemy does damage or something like that. But like I'll talk more about that later. But you can play this thing solo in a couple of hours per session. In terms of like GM guidelines, the GM is expected to guide the story and telegraph danger. What we mean by that is that like the GM should be forthcoming. Like if like they shouldn't be here to trap the players. They should just like if something dangerous is coming, they should just be straightforward with it, because like they're there to like provide problems and not solutions, and that's another guideline. The players will like solve those problems. They should show the world as it is. So basically the same thing, like the GM needs to be honest with the players about like what they see and what they can do. They should check in with the players if they talk about something that they feel like the players may be uncomfortable with. Like they should check in to make sure that, like everyone at the table is having fun, right? Creating a safe environment for everyone. And they can pause or rewind as needed if something uncomfortable happens. Like we expect the GM to just like, okay, like screw that, let's like rewind the game and replay the scene because like we want to get rid of this particular aspect. Be a fan of the characters, like not there to trap them. Trust the fiction if there's a doubt. Like if there's a doubt about the mechanics, you just go and look at the fiction, use the fictions to guide the mechanics, not the other way around. And like ask questions, use the answer. That's how I like to like GM. I like when I don't know all the answers, I'm basically like here to organize the game night. So I will like when I have like things that I don't know, I'll often ask the players like, hey, like what do you think that NPC's name is? Right? It's things as simple as that, or like you enter this tavern, what does it look like? Right? And I go through each player and like asking the questions so that they can help make the fiction more interesting and more like they can own the fiction a bit as well. Split problems into multiple roles, right? So if you encounter like a complex problems, like you can like just say it will take a couple of rolls, like a couple of successes for this situation to be resolved. And lastly, improvise rules as needed. So if the game is like a toolkit, so like if you want to, you can use its base structure and hand on it as needed. Player guidelines, standard stuff, listen and pay attention, narrate your actions, and align on things as a group, share the spotlight, engage with the fiction. Like, it's important to list those things out. We tend to forget. Embrace risk and play to find out. It's okay if your character dies or if they, like death is never really on the table until, like, you decide that it is. But, like, we're here to have fun. We're here to, like, tell stories that are dramatic. So, like, it's fun to embrace risk. Stack the odds in your favor. We're going to talk about that later, but there's a mechanical aspect tied to this. Find creative solutions, rise up from failure, and don't hoard the cards or else. We'll talk more about this in a second, but in the game, you reveal cards and sometime you will add them to your hand, right? But if you keep adding cards to your hand, the game will become more and more difficult. Again, we'll talk about this in a sec. Character sheet, like, it's always fun to see the character sheet at as one of the first things you see on a game. That it gives you a bit of an idea of, like, how simple the game can be, but it also, like, has a lot of, like, space for telling a great story. So, the game. In this game, you perform trial and fate rolls when there is uncertainty in the fiction. You add cards to your hand when your trial rolls succeed and burn them to gain momentum. And, most importantly, continually collaborate in moving the story in interesting directions. Okay, so there are two core mechanics, the trial and the fate roll. They are similar, but they have, like, one big distinction. And that distinction is that, like, when you succeed in a trial roll, you will add a card to your hand. Okay? We'll get to there. The trial roll mechanic is right there. We're just going to continue reading. Create your character. Flip the pamphlet to reveal its cover and follow the steps to create your own fierce northerner. So, should we do that now? Yeah, I guess we should. Let's get there. Your character. To create a character, go through the following steps. Your attributes are the main way you interact with the world. Your character has 4 attributes. With your strength, you may crush, lift, strike, and grapple. With your dexterity, you may dash, aim, sneak, and handle. With your willpower, you may perceive, solve, analyze, and focus. And with your heart, you may persuade, command, charm, and honor. So, like, we give those as examples. They're not, like, extremely, like, detailed, but, like, it's just, like, to give you an idea of, like, when you try to do something risky, you're going to use one of those 4 attributes. And they're just to give you a couple of examples. Like, well, like, if you're trying to grapple someone, like, usually you're going to use strength. Could be something else, but it all depends on what the player is actually, like, the player character is actually doing, right? If they're, like, using their strength or if they're using the dexterity, the description of the action is going to be different. To determine your starting modifier, reveal a card for each attribute. So if we go back to the character sheet over here, we have attributes, strength, willpower, dexterity, and heart, right? So there's a modifier for each of those. And then we reveal a card for each attribute. So if I were to do it, like, right now, I would reveal 4 cards. And out of those 4 cards, I need to look at the suit here. So depending if it's heart, diamond, spade, or, is that spade? Forgot the English word. But yeah, like, those 4 symbols, I know the words in French. The English words, I'm missing them a bit right now, but yeah. And this draw was actually pretty unlucky, but basically, in the game, red cards are good, black cards are bad, right? That's the general thing. A heart is better than a diamond. Then, like, we have those 2, which are bad. So I got only black cards, which would mean that, like, I would get, like, attribute either set to 0 or -1. And I need to write down the result on my character sheet. But if you're unhappy with your attributes, you may try to get a better result by revealing another card, but must accept the new result. This can only be done for 2 attributes. So, like, I need to take 2 of those cards and use them on my character sheet. And the remaining 2, I could discard them and use 2 new cards instead. So here, I got, like, a red card. It's yellow, but it's actually red, right? It's a heart and a black card. So it's a bit better. But, like, if you're playing the game, don't worry. There are other factors that will modify your attributes. This is just the starting number. Then you are guarded by a Venori, a spirit of the wild and a messenger of the god. The Venori you choose increases certain attributes, as I was saying, and sets your initial max resilience. You can see that kind of like your HP, but not just physical, but also like mental. And yeah. And gives you a special ability. Additionally, you may burn a card for a short while, conjure your Venori and take its physical appearance. Leverage its presence or your new form to roll with a reduced DR. We're going to talk about the DR in a sec, but that's a difficulty rating that we set when we make a roll. So like we can use the shape of our guardian spirit to help us in the game. So we can roll. We have 6 Venoris. So we have the bear, the wolf, the raven, the elk, the ox, and the owl. And if we take just a quick look at the bear increases my strength by 2 and my heart by 1. And my max resilience is going to be a d10 plus 3. So I roll a single d10 and add 3 to it. And that's going to be my starting resilience, my starting HP. And that is my ability. You may burn a card to roll an extra d4 on top of my armor to resist incoming damage, right? So I can do that anytime to try to resist incoming damage as long as I can burn a card. We're going to go back here and we're going to look at like burning cards in a sec, but that's my ability. If you're unhappy with your max resilience, you may re-roll once but must accept the new result. So again, we want character creation to be fast, but like if luck is not on your end, it's not on your side, we give you a little escape hatch to help you try to get a character that isn't horrible. Your armor allows you to resist damage during combat. You start with a d4 armor set. Fill the d4 armor slot on your character sheet. So we go here, we have armor, we have a d4, right? So we draw on this little like shape here to say that we have a d4 armor. We could also like use this box to describe what our armor looks like. And then you start with a d6 weapon. A weapon provides convenient ways to perform attacks on enemies. So it's a d6 weapon of your choice, and you add it to your inventory. It could be a sword, an axe, a bow, a spear, a pair of knives, a staff, anything, right? So the actual name of the weapon, what a weapon is not like super important. We don't really care. It's just like you start with a d6 weapon, you add it to your inventory over here. All right. So just think of something cool, use one of the examples, and write it down. Experience. We're going to talk about that later because this is how you grow in the game, but it talks about a bunch of mechanics that we haven't talked about yet. But that's the character creation. We're done. We're ready to get going. We could write our names and pronouns here, write down our Venori, we write down our stats, write down our resilience and armor. We have our weapon in our inventory. We have 0 experience, and we have a note box. That's it. We're ready to go. So, chart the map. Drop a d20 on the map sheet X grid, and this is the region you're currently located in. Use the rolling tables available on the map of the back of the sheet to help define the terrain, threats, non-player characters, treasures, and risk rating of the region. Right? Before I talk about risk rating, this is the map. Right? There are a number of X's. You take a d20 and you literally drop it on the map. This is where you are. This is your current region. And those are the tables that you can use, right? You can this could be like, let's say we rolled a couple of dice. It could be like a modest plateau with like a point of interest that could be like, a burial ground, right? So like you can use those tables to help define what this region looks like. And there are many rolling tables again here that you can use to like define like what like the initial situation, what it looks like when you arrive there, right? Like, is there like some couple of themes and actions that you could roll to help define what is happening? Like maybe like there's like what does the weather look like? And like, are there any NPCs? What are their names? You can use those tables to define those names, stuff like that. If I go back here, the risk rating of a region reflects the level of unknown and danger in the region. It ranges from 1 to 3, but may be stepped up or down at the GM's discretion depending on the action of the players in the fiction. Each X is 6 miles or 10 kilometers face to face. A person can walk at X in a day. On a mile, they get cross 2. On a long shape, they can roll 3, but sell 4 X's with favorable winds. So if we go back here, those are the X's, and each X is going to have a risk rating, right? And that rating, can range from 1 to 3. If we go back to the map sheet over here, the way that the risk rating of a region is determined is here. These are strange new lands. Let me zoom in a bit. With creatures on unfathomable forms, remnants of advanced yet long-lost civilizations, floras, and faunas that are as beautiful as they are treacherous, and hopefully a place to call home. At the start of the game, and each time you enter a new X, take the time as a group to describe the region. Use your imagination or use the rolling tables. Write down a key detail, and finally reveal a card to set the initial risk rating of the region. So you take one of the cards, you reveal it, and depending on which suite it is, it's going to tell you the initial risk rating. So like it's a risk rating that starts at 1 and there's a moment of serenity, or it starts at 2 and there's an impending threat, there's something that's coming, right? The risk rating determines the level of unknown and danger in the region, and it can be changed by the GM. So if the players do something in the fiction that affects how dangerous the region the players are, like if it affects how dangerous it is, the GM could say, well, actually, this was like a risk rating of 2, but now that you've done this quest, the risk rating decreases to a 1. Or maybe because like something happened in the fiction, like a new threat was introduced, maybe the risk rating steps up and goes to a 3. So we've talked about like X's and risk ratings, but like when are they used? They're used for making trial rolls. So when making a risky action, you make a trial roll. You pick the attribute that's best suited for your action. We've talked about attributes. They are strength, willpower, dexterity, and heart. The GM discusses with the group and sets a difficulty rating. Usually it's a 12, but you can make it a 9 if it's something that's easy. You can make it a 15 if it's challenging, right? The GM reveals a number of cards matching the current region risks rating, and for each black card, the difficulty rating of the roll is increased by 2. This is where things get interesting. So if you have like a card, like let's say like the GM says, you're trying to like do this thing and it's risky. I set the difficulty rating at 12, and then I reveal 3 cards. 1, 2, 3. I have 2 black cards and 1 red card. That means that my 12 becomes 14 for this black card, and then 16 because of this black card. So because of the cards basically act as like a chaos factor, right? The more dangerous a region is, the more cards we reveal when making a trial roll. And because of this, trial rolls become more difficult to beat, right? So what you need to do is roll a d20 plus your modifier, so nothing too crazy there, and that gives you a score. If your score is greater than the difficulty rating, it's a success. Not greater or equal, greater. So in this case, in my example, I need to beat 16, so 17 and up. It's a success. Otherwise, it's a setback. So there are a couple of mechanics that will tell you, like, make a trial roll, and here's what happens when there's a success, here's what happens when there's a setback, right? And it also uses the same, like, format, those little green boxes. So success, you gain control of a moment in the scene and narrate what happens next. The player narrates what happens next. Obviously, the GM has the final say. If the player just goes over the top and it doesn't match, like, what has been established in the fiction, like, it won't work with the group, right? But they get more narrative control as to what happens. Not the GM, the player. You add one of the revealed cards to your N if no cards were burned for the roll. You must always pick red cards over black cards. So, if I succeeded to my roll, and I currently have those 3 cards laid out in front of me, because they were the 3 cards that I used to make my trial roll, and I succeed, then what I get to do is I get to take one of those and add them to my N. But I need to take this one. I need to take the red card first. So those 2 black cards are going to go into the discard. But the discard is going to go back into the deck at some point. So what that does is that over time, the more I start hoarding the cards, the more I started getting those red cards into my hand. But not just me, but the rest of the group as well. The deck is going to become more and more filled with black cards, which means that trial rolls are going to be more difficult. But not just that, many mechanics rely on cards. So just at a quick glance, the reaction of an NPC depends on revealing a card. If the deck is more filled with black cards, NPCs will be more wary or straight up hostile. When you rest, it depends on revealing a card. So if there are more black cards in the deck, we recover less health, less resilience when we heal, right? And an enemy morale, when tested with black cards, they stem the fight or they double down. And when you gain experience and eventually level up, basically gain an advancement, it's possible you will not change, like you will not increase your attributes, or maybe your resilience will increase during advancement because of those black cards. So that's why hoarding cards is not a good idea. And the reason why we do this is because we want players to burn those cards, because like it keeps the flow of the game going. Players are rewarded for their successful act. Players are always rewarded when they take risk. So in this case, they're rewarded by a card. It's like, you get a card, congratulations, use it. Do not hoard it. This is a meta currency. But if you hoard it, instead of like punishing, well, like we are punishing you for hoarding cards, but it's to encourage you to put them back into the deck and have fun with it, right? And what I mean by like you're always rewarded when you make a trial roll is that like on a setback, you mark experience. But as a result, you also give up control of the narrative back to the GM. So they describe what happens, and they may inject more tension in the scene by introducing consequences, such as like maybe it's just something in the narrative, or maybe like they actually interact with the mechanics and you lose some HP, you lose resilience, or they damage your armor or weapon, or you gain a condition. We're going to talk about conditions in a bit, but a damaged armor, we're going to talk about that as well. But the TLDR of it is you have a D4. A damaged armor could mean like you don't have no armor anymore. From a D6 could go to a D4, or maybe to nothing. And same thing for like weapons, right? Weapons have a dice. It could be stepped down. Sorry. So let's talk about fate rolls. So fate rolls, when taking an action with uncertain outcome but no consequential risks, you make a fate roll. You simply perform a trial roll, but you skip step 3 and use the result to help guide the story forward, right? So with step 3, the GM reveals a number of cards. So there is no cards involved with a fate roll, right? When making a fate roll, you also forego adding cards to your end on a success. And there is no XP on a setback. And we do this because like fate rolls are basically used as like an oracle of some sort. It's like if you're making an action, it's not super risky, but you still want to roll some dice. You still want to like have fun and interact with the game. We don't want to just tell you like, well, you can't because it's going to like shift the game out of balance because you're going to have a bunch of cards in your hands for taking actions that aren't like meaningful or consequential. So we just tell you, well, you can do it. You can just roll your attribute plus modifier and use the result to help guide the story, but you do not interact with cards. There are no revealing cards. There is no adding cards to your end, and you don't gain XP because you only do those things when things are risky. Yeah, so what we'll do is I'll continue reading through like this section, and then I may make another video to go through the rest of the document because this one's already getting a bit long, and I feel like water is enough for me to like help fix my throat. So inventory. When you get an item or a weapon, you add it to your inventory slot. Items can be used to reduce the DR of a roll, but the GM has the final say. Right, so if we go back here, inventory, there are slots. So weapon takes 1 slot. And then weapons are assigned a die rating, and they become damaged at the GM's discretion. When damaged, the weapon die is tapped down. You may also take the time to repair damaged weapons when you take a long rest. There's a lot of things going on here, right? But basically, if you get an item, and it's like important enough to like, if it's not just like, I don't know, like you find like some rock or whatever, like you don't add that to your inventory slot. It's like, except if it's like a fancy rock. But if it's something that's like important, it takes a slot in your inventory. And like, because you have those items, let's say you have like some mounting, like climbing gear or whatever, like you can use that to tell the GM, I have some like climbing gear. I like, probably the difficulty rating of like climbing up a mountain will be reduced because of that, right? So instead of a 12, maybe it's a 9 to climb the mountain, right? Cards are still involved, but at least the initial rating is reduced. Weapons are a sort of item, but they are assigned a die rating between D4 and D12, and you only use them for attacks. You could still use them to reduce the DR of a roll when like outside of combat, but like the main idea is that like you use weapons for attacks. When there's a setback on a trial roll, it's possible that the GM is going to use that to just say like your weapon becomes damaged because like you badly used it, or like something got in your way and it like damaged it. This is what I like when we say like did a weapon die is stepped down. Let's say I have a D6 sword, and the GM tells me your weapon is damaged. My D6 sword then becomes a D4 sword, right? So it's less impactful when I'm making attacks. But you may also take the time to repair damaged weapons when you take a long rest. We're going to talk about rest in a second, or probably in another video. But there's like when you make a long rest, you can basically perform like a task, and one of those tasks could be to repair a weapon. So we have cards in our hands, but what do we do with them? We can burn them. And what we mean by that is that like you can take it and put it into discard, but by doing that, you're triggering something cool, right? You're triggering an ability. And one of those abilities, well, there's a couple of them here. You can call the gods, and that will basically add a +2 to your score. The score is the thing you get when you make a trial roll. You roll a d20 plus the attribute modifier to get a score. If I roll a d20 plus modifier and I get like, I don't know, a 10, I can burn a card to increase that 10 to a 12. Or I could burn a card to give +2 to an ally score. So if my friend got a 12 and I burn a card, it gets bumped to a 14. And you can turn the table. So this one is fun. You can turn a setback into a success, but the GM gets to introduce a new consequence. This is a success at a cost, right? Yes, the result of a trial roll is binary. It's either the player has like the control of the narrative or the GM has. But here, the player can say, no. I really want this to succeed. So they can burn a card and say, I succeed. I want to have like the control of the narrative. But there's a but. The GM gets to introduce a consequence, and one of those could be like loss of resilience, damaged armor, damaged weapon, a new condition, or something in the narrative, right? You could also burn a card to add an item to your inventory as if it had always been there. This is like a flashback. This is you saying, yeah, I did have like climbing equipment to climb this mountain. And because of that, you can use items, right? We saw it here. Items can be used to reduce the DR of a roll. So like if I say, I want to burn a card because like I knew we were going in this direction, and I knew there was a mountain, so I bought some like mountain like climbing equipment from this person in this village. Maybe you take some time to do a scene over there, but the player can burn a card and say, I have like climbing equipment gear in my inventory. They write it down and then like can use that to reduce the difficulty of a roll, but the GM has the final say. Oh, right. So resilience and conditions. As I said, resilience is like your HP. It's like your health. And it represents your physical and mental well-being. If reduced to 0, you make a trial roll. We saw those here, right? Like we cited here, the trial rolls are here. So we need to pick an attribute, and like the GM sets a difficulty rating, they reveal cards, and then we roll a d20 plus a modifier to try to basically stay in the fight, not be taken out. So Depending on if you succeed or if you get a setback, if you succeed, you're not ready to fall, and you set your resilience back to 1. It was at 0, you made the trial roll, you succeeded, it's back to 1. You're still in the fight, right? You're still there. But on a setback, you are incapacitated and close to death. You are not dead, right? Death is actually not in the game. There is no death condition. You're close to that. If you want to die, if you want your character to die, it is your decision, right? If you think it's interesting, if you think it tells a good story, you can say, no, I think my character dies here. I think it's going to be very interesting for them to die. But if not, your wounds are tended, and you can, like, if your wounds are tended and someone helps you, right? Maybe like the GM says that an NPC finds you on the battlefield, or maybe one of your allies is there to help you. You can set your resilience back to 1, but you work with the GM to gain a condition. So there's no condition space on the character sheet. And the reason for this is that conditions take inventory slots. So conditions are negative aspects, right? So if you're a fate person, that word is probably going to ring a bell. There are negative aspects attached to your character. Each condition take at least 1 inventory slot. It could take more, right? If you just got like, if your knee was smashed or something, that condition is probably going to take more slots than like a light burn on the arm or something, right? It's for you to decide, well, for the GM and the rest of the crew. And to clear conditions, you need a full rest. We're going to see rest in a bit, but you need a full rest or wait until it becomes irrelevant. So if there's a fast forward in the story and you like the GM is like, okay, it was 4 months into the future, this is where we continue the story, then like the condition's not really like, it's probably healed by now, right? If like one of those conditions was like afraid or like badly injured, like maybe it's irrelevant by that point. So you just like strike it off, right? Really depends on like what is in the fiction. Where it gets fun though, at least for the GM, well, like if the GM's having fun, like in that game, I assume everybody's having fun. The GM can invoke conditions to increase the difficulty rating of a roll. They don't need to pay anything, right? Like, I made a fate reference, but like here, that isn't one. The GM can just say like, oh, because you're afraid or because you're badly injured, when you try to do something, whether like a trial roll or even a fate roll, the DR could be increased, right? We didn't read this paragraph, but like when a rule changes the DR of a roll, the group decides by how much, using the fiction as their guide. So if you're trying to climb a mountain, again, I'm going to use that example a lot, but if you're trying to climb a mountain and you're badly injured, well, maybe the GM's going to say like, well, like the base rating is going to be like an 18. And maybe the group is like, well, not that much. Like they weren't like that badly injured. Like maybe like something like a 14 would make more sense. Like, yeah, okay, I'll agree with a 14, right? Like, so it's a conversation. You should like decide as a group. Great. At that point, I'm very tempted to finish it because, like, yeah, like there's only one sheet left. We can continue. So I'm talking like if it's a stream and you could like talk in the chat, but you like this is like asynchronous, so like drop a comment if you want to chat or something. I'm going to read it later. Yeah, so armor. Your armor allows you to resist incoming damage and is defined by a die rating, D4 to D6. If we go back to the character sheet, we have armor, nothing, D4, and D6. During an enemy attack, you roll your armor die and subtract the result from incoming damage. Armor may be ignored or damaged at the GM discretion. Again, if there's a consequence to one of your roll, the GM could say like, well, like your armor gets damaged. When damaged, the armor die is stepped down. Again, what we mean by step down is like if you have a D6 armor, it gets stepped down to a D4, then it gets stepped down to like nothing, and you don't have armor anymore, and you cannot resist damage. So if someone rolls like a weapon die to attack you, like an enemy, and they roll like a 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, Well, you don't have armor to try to reduce that number. If you had a D4 armor and you rolled a 4, then they'd only deal 2 damage to you. That's good, but you don't have armor, so you take the full hit. One other thing about armor, and I wanted to talk about that right now. During combat, your goal is to deal damage to like the host party and to try to take them out, and their goal is like the opposite for you. And armor can stale combat in that game. It's really important to try to get the odds in your favor, and that's why there's like this guideline here. I think it's stack the odds in your favor. That's basically it. Like, you want to try to change the fiction as much as you can to try to get reduced difficulty ratings when you're attacking, but you also want to like try to change the fiction so that like the enemy's armor is ignored or damaged as well. We're going to talk about that in a bit, but armor can still combat, and if you don't take care of it, combat is going to wear you down, and it may even be boring. So armor, it's important to take out. It's like a shield, right? Like if you were in a game like a Mass Effect or Halo, right? Like there's the shield, you need to take out the shield, and then you can attack the person behind the shield. It's a bit like that. So to recover, you can take half an hour to catch your breath, reveal a card to recover that much resilience. Well, not that much, but like to recover resilience based on the suite of the cards. So you have like the 4 symbols here, and depending on like which one you pick or you reveal, you're either going to reveal 5 resilience, 3, 2, and there's trouble ahead, or 1, or trouble is here. So even resting can be problematic depending on the cards that are in the deck. So again, don't hoard the cards. If you've got like, or if you want to hoard them, try to hoard the black ones, right? Like try to keep the black ones in your end. Yeah, like black cards, they're not good. They're trouble all the time. It's all about injecting drama in the story. A long rest, you spend a couple of hours resting, reveal a card and interpret the result as above, but double the recovery. So instead of recovering 5 resilience on a heart, you recover 10. That's good, right? You may also spend time fixing a damaged weapon or armor, but then only get the benefit of a short rest. So what that means is, I'd love to recover 10 resilience, but my armor is completely broken from a fight that I had like a couple of hours ago. So like, I'll spend some time to fix my armor. I want that D4 armor back, or that D6 armor back. I want it back. So I'll just take, like, let's say I reveal an art. I'll say, yeah, no, like, I want to repair my armor, so I'm only going to get 5 resilience back for now. If you spend a full week out of action, that's a full rest, or in calm transit, you restore all resilience, and if it makes sense to the fiction, you clear in condition as well, right? Again, conditions, they're also very tied to the fiction, so like if they don't make sense, remove them. Reactions. When an NPC's reaction to you is not obvious, you reveal a card. So again, cards are tied to good and bad things. So the GM can use that. Well, not the GM, but like the GM could say like, well, like reveal a card, and that's going to tell the group, it's going to tell all of us how that NPC is, like what they think of you, if they seem helpful, curious, wary, or like straight up hostile towards you. This is something like you see often in OSR games, like the reaction table of all of that, and like we really wanted to like tie it to the cards. Like most of the things in there, like always try to tie them back to the cards, and even combat. So like the initiative, the way that it works in this game is that like to decide who goes first in combat, you reveal a card. So again, red versus black cards, good things versus bad things. If you get a red card, your group goes first. The players get to go first, or otherwise it's the enemy that goes first. The group order stays the same until the combat is over, and the individual order is not tracked. We don't care about individual initiative. It's like the whole group, and then afterwards, like, well, you decide who goes when. It's just like that's a whole group. When the whole group is gone, it's time to the other. Like it's the NPC's turn, right? And you bounce back and forth, but one group at a time. The combat ends when all player characters or enemy run out of resilience, or if one side decides to withdraw, right? So there are certain mechanics that could trigger, like checking an enemy's morale, but we're going to talk about enemy morale in a sec. Enemies are made of resilience, armor, and weapons. That's it. Those three things, right? We talk like right below, we say you can build your own enemies or convert some from existing OSR bestiary. Like, if you want to convert an OSR monster or beast or whatever, like, if they are like, if they have a lot of health, you give them a lot of resilience, right? You can use hit die if you want to determine the initial resilience of an enemy. But like, if they seem tough, give them a lot of armor or give them a bit of armor. But if they seem weak, like, or not like sturdy, don't give them any armor at all. And then weapons could be like spells if you want, or they could be like actual weapons and like swords and whatnot. If they are like, if they're heavy hitters, give them strong weapons like D12 or like D10 weapons. If not, give them D4, D6 weapons and spells. And like the weapon that they have and the weapons that you have are used to determine how much damage you deal to an enemy. So like when you attack an enemy, you roll a weapon die, right? We're going to talk about that in a sec, but like those three things, that's all you need to make enemies, right? Not NPCs. NPCs, you just talk to them, right? But like an actual enemy that is going to interact with the players at the table just takes those three things. That's it. During a turn, you can do either of those things. You can make a trial roll to attempt to change the fiction and reduce future difficulty ratings, right? Or to damage your target's armor or weapon, or to otherwise alter the fiction. So like, if you want to give the upper end to one of your allies, you can make a trial roll, pick one of your attributes, make the whole trial roll thing. And that can be used to determine the difficulty rating of future rolls, right? So if I try to set one of my allies for success, I do a trial roll and I succeed, then their trial roll may be like reduced because of that, thanks to that. Or like if like an enemy has like a strong armor, like a D6 armor, that's what I meant by like combats will stall. Like D6 armor is no joke. And like making a trial roll to get rid of that armor and step it down, like that's crucial. And like same thing for weapons, right? Like if you can attack, but like if the enemy is like a glass cannon, maybe you want to try to reduce that, like damage their spell casting abilities, or maybe you try to like break their weapon or reduce their efficiency. You make trial rolls to try to do that. You just need to say like, I'm making a trial roll, right, to try to do this, reduce the armor, step down the armor of my enemy, step down their weapon, right? I want to try to alter the fiction because otherwise we're not going to win this fight. Because combat encounters are very draining. They're very difficult. Unless you play smart. This is you playing smart. The other thing you can do is performing an attack. There are two ways to perform an attack. You can just choose a weapon. You have weapons in your inventory. At character creation, you had a D6 weapon. You can use that, right? If you have a D6 weapon and you make an attack, well, like that will serve as your damage die. Like the weapons die is your damage die. Or otherwise, you can just describe what you're trying to do. And you can, like, when we say trying to harm an enemy through other means, that's a feat. The GM assigns a damage die to your action. So if you say, I want to take my like sword, I want to try like my D6 sword, I want to attack with that, that's cool. That's okay. But if you say like, I want to use my sword, but I also want to like, I don't know, like I want to run up that hill and like cut a couple of like ropes, and that's going to make this boulder roll down on the enemies and whatnot. Like the GM could say, I love that. Like that's going to be like, if you succeed, that's going to be like a D10 damage die instead of like your standard D6. So again, if you play smart, if you interact with fiction, if you participate in this storytelling exercise, you're rewarded. Like the GM will most probably give you something that's better than your weapon just by you interacting with the fiction, right? By being smart. So in both cases, whether you choose a weapon or you do something like a feat, you make a trial roll. Again, trial roll, it's all there. Just follow the steps. On a success, you use the damage die as is, or you step it up if you rolled a 20. So if I had a d6 weapon, I make a trial roll with the cards and XP and everything, and I succeed, that damage die, I get to use it. Like, it's a d6. That's how much damage I deal. If I rolled a 20, I step it up. So instead of like the d6, I would use a d8, right? The dice is stepped up. On the setback, I still get to deal damage, right? But the damage is stepped down. So instead of a d6, I step it down to a d4, right? If I roll a 1, or critical failure, however you want to call it, I step it down twice. So if I had a d10 damage die, like if we go back to our example with the feet, where with the cutting the rope to make the boulder roll down, whatever, and I get a setback, well, like maybe I do it, right? Like I still make the boulder roll down, but it doesn't roll as efficiently or as fast as I thought it would. So the d10 damage die that the GM had assigned to this feat will be stepped down twice. So d10 to d8 and d8 to d6, right? Then the GM may inflict a consequence in addition or in place of the step down damage die. So maybe the damage die wasn't enough, right? It wasn't enough of a consequence. Stepping down the damage die wasn't enough of a consequence for that roll. Maybe the GM wants to be a bit more punishing, so they could say well, you damage your weapon as a result, or maybe you need to remove some resilience, right? You lose some resilience, or maybe you lose some armor, right? Really depends. Really depends on the fiction. So once that's done, you roll the damage die and deal that much damage to your target's resilience minus their armor die. Enemies have armor, so if you deal some damage to an enemy, let's say I ended up rolling a d6 damage die. I rolled that. I have a 4. So cool, 4, but my enemy has armor. They roll their armor die and subtract the result. They take the damage die minus the armor result, the armor die roll result. So yeah, that's kind of the whole thing about you during your turn, what you can do. And as for an enemy attacks, and they prompt you to defend with a trial roll. So they don't roll per se, right? And the GM will describe what they do, and they'll attack you, right? Maybe you try to swing at them with their sword. If you gain a setback, maybe you dealt some damage, or maybe the damage was entirely absorbed by their armor, then they attack you back. So what they do is they have weapons, right? Enemies are made of weapons, so they're going to use that to try to attack you. But when they attack you, you need to make a trial roll. Again, including cards and experience, to try to defend from the attack. So you make your trial roll, you try to resist the attack. On a success, you avoid it, and the DR of your next roll is reduced if you rolled a 20. So if you rolled a crit, you get an advantage, right? You will be able to use that and say I'm trying to attack back, but then maybe the difficulty rating is stepped down because of that. On a setback, you get hit, and the GM uses the enemy's damage die. So in that case, it'd be the weapon stepped up if you rolled a 1. So on a natural, if the die that you roll ends up rolling on a 1, the enemy, let's say they had a weapon or spell that was set at a d8, then their damage die is stepped up to a d10 because you rolled a 1, right? So again, 20s and 1s are used for extreme successes and extreme failure in both an enemy's turn and your turn. The GM may inflict consequences in addition or in place of the damage dealt to you, depending on the fiction. So it could be your armor's damage, you gain a condition and whatnot. The GM rolls the damage die and deal that much damage to your resilience minus your armor die roll. So you also roll to try to resist damage. So that's what I meant, coming back to armor will stall combat if it's not taken away. So the GM can use an enemy's attack to try to reduce your armor and step it down. You should do the same. You should always try to get rid of armor. Mobs of enemies may be grouped together as a single entity. small thing, important one, like if there's like a big group of like thieves or thugs and whatnot, that you can just say like that's like one entity. They have like 10 resilience and like no armor and a d6 like weapon, right? They like, and that's it, right? It could be just it's one entity. Really depends, right? And lastly, well, not lastly, we're going to talk about experience, but like enemy morale. When an enemy feels outnumbered or see their leader fall, reveal a card to determine how they react. Again, we're tying things back to cards here. So like they either panic or try to flee, they surrender or negotiate, they stare into fight, or they double down. Right? So like some things may trigger an enemy morale check, like some abilities from the Venoris and whatnot, but like here, like it can really shift a combat like when this gets triggered. And again, it really depends on like what is the deck, the current deck, the state of the deck, what it's made of. And the last thing, that's it. Like we'll be able to talk about everything in like around an hour. Experience. When a try or roll results in a setback, you get to mark experience. So, right, we saw it over here. On a setback, you mark XP. When you mark experience, you just like you have a couple of like experience boxes. You draw on one of them, or you color one of the boxes. And then, when your XP track is filled, you receive the blessing from your Venori. Clear your XP track and do the following. So for each attribute, you reveal a card. Depending on the suite, it's either going to tell you to increase that attribute, or it's going to stay the same, or maybe you're going to see something bad, maybe a vision, right? Or maybe like something actually happening in the physical world that is like a bad sign, right? If you reveal more than one spade, the omen becomes more menacing, right? So if you have you reveal 4 cards, and the 4 cards are like spades, then you see something really bad happening. So like we really try to like always try to move the story forward, even for like experience mechanics, resting mechanics, like everything can inject drama back. Changing your resilience, you to get your new max resilience, you reveal a card. So like again, red cards and black cards, and like their mapping. We have like tables in the map sheet over here with like a couple of like very cool visions and omens that you can like use when like you get like an XP track that is filled. But yeah, that's it. That's the game. That's the entirety of the game. The map sheet here will like we have our X map. We have a couple of tables. When we like are on like one of the axes, we can describe it, use the tables to like help us guide what that region looks like, and write it down in one of those like numbered regions and give that X a number. But and yeah, like the other thing we haven't talked about is solo play. Like we include like a card based oracle here. In early like phases, like testing phases of the game, we were thinking about like using dice for the oracle, but it just felt like so much more natural to rely on cards again here. When you have answers to a question where your character isn't directly involved in the outcome, formulate a yes/no question and evaluate the likelihood of a positive outcome. That's a mouthful, but the idea is like if you're wondering something about the world, not necessarily your character. If you perform actions, you can make fate rolls, trial rolls, and all of that. But if you're like, is there a lot of people in this city, or is it mostly deserted, right? Like, is there a lot of people in this city? That's a yes/no question. You reveal 1 card for Sheerlock, right? So I have a deck of cards here. I reveal 1 card for Sheerlock, and reveal 1 card for each additional factor or advantage that would increase the likelihood of a positive outcome. So like, oh, this village, like it's close to a river or it's close to like the sea. So maybe like there's like probably a port. So like it's pretty likely that there's going to be people. So I'm going to reveal like another card, right? And like maybe I just leave it as is, just 2 cards. If you revealed at least 2 red cards, the answer to your question is a strong yes. In my case, I revealed a black card and a red card. If you reveal only 1 red card, the answer to you is a weak yes. If you reveal no red cards, the answer to you is no. So in my case, it would be a weak yes. So I use the answer as a jumping point for my story to or like continue asking questions until I feel ready to continue playing. So like maybe one question is enough. Like, is there a lot of people in the city? Is like maybe the subsequent question would be like, is it a monster that drove people away? Like, why is it a weak yes? Did some people start like leaving, or was it always like that? Right. So I can ask questions. Right. Like, did people actually start like leaving the city, and continue asking questions with those cards? When I feel ready, I'm like, okay, I think I've asked enough questions. I think the Oracle has helped me enough. If you're wondering, like, those will answer yes no questions. If you want more information as to what could happen, like in your story, you can roll in the themes here, right? So maybe I rolled a d20 and I have like forgiveness as like a result, and I rolled another d20 and I get like explore as an action. So forgiveness and explore. So maybe there's like this annual thing where people leave the island and try to go to this specific location where they try to like ask for forgiveness to their gods, right? So maybe that's why the city is like pretty much empty. So that's how like you can use the oracle. But that's Songs and Sagas. That's the entirety of the game. And it is like it is a game that you can play as is. It is you can print it at home and start playing by yourself, or you can print multiple copies of the game and you can play with your friends. And the thing is, it's also more than that, right? It's it's a creator kit. It's a set of mechanics. So we have this website here called the Songs and Sagas Creator Kit. And in there, you will find the system reference document of the game. So those are all the mechanics that I've just read to you, filled with design notes, more than what I've just talked about. Like, for example, like, okay, like, if I go here, it's like attributes, and then you open this box, and then you have a bunch of like information about like attributes, like from a design standpoint. Like, if you want to take this game and make it your own, if you want to make a game that's carried in Songs and Sagas, right? So the creator kit is also like, it has like license information. That game is entirely open license. The settings, the rolling table, the mechanics, it's all licensed under the ORC license, the Open Creative RPG license. So all the license information is there. If you want to make your own game or make it like an adventure for it, it's super simple. Do whatever you want with a game, and then you take this blurb of text, you copy it, and you paste it somewhere on your game. This work is based on Songs and Sagas, product of Fire RPGs, developed and authored by me. And then like this product is licensed under the ORC license, available at various locations, including blah, blah, blah. You take that. If you want, we also have logos and assets, so you can take that, and we have like, that's not, for some reason, like the dark team is not super like that super readable, but there's a bunch of like SVGs that you can download to get the carried in Songs and Sagas logos and all of that. So all is available in the creator kit. We also have a Discord with like over like 14 community members. So like I really encourage you to like join. We're like, it's a great place, a really, really great community. And also, I didn't mention it, but it's super important. Like, let me go back to the itch page. The game is only $3. It's $3. You can find it on itch. It's also available on TTRPG. Like, I encourage you to like buy it on itch. Like, they have like a drive-thru has a big cut on like sales. Itch has like a less big cut, so like itch is great. Buy it there. But yeah, it's only $3. You get like the 2 PDFs, and you also get to encourage like fantastic people. Like, let me go back at the bottom, like yeah, myself, but like Galen Peugeot of Nightjar Game. He's the illustrator that made that illustration for the cover of the game, but he's also working on the expanded edition of the game, Sagas of the 10th Realm, and he's making like a bunch of beautiful illustrations such as this one and many, many more. And also, Eric Lazur is the editor. He's the person that like goes after me and makes sure that like the text that I've written is like actually good. We had some additional editing from Lynn Jones, an amazing community member from the Fari community. He's been there since our early days. That person's amazing. They're all amazing. We had design consultancy from Ryan Lucas, Lynn Jones, Andrew Board of Penguin Games, and Matteo Suteri from Tiny Pumpkin Games. So yeah, just a bunch of like amazing people to work with. If you want to cover the game in like a podcast, if you want to make an actual play podcast, or like an actual like play stream and whatever of the game, we have a press kit. It's all available on like the Songs and Sagas website, like access to press kit. If you click on this link, and then like at the bottom you have press kit assets. You have all the information about like who made the game and like what is the price and like a bunch of text that you can use. But in the press kit assets, it's a Google Drive link, and in there you'll find a bunch of like high resolution images that you can use to make your own like material, your own promo material for the game, for your actual play or your coverage or your blog posts and stuff like that. Lastly, last point, we're currently hosting the Songs and Sagas Game Jam. So we have 2 months and like, I think it's a bit less than 2 months, a month and 23 days to make either something compatible with Songs and Sagas, like an adventure, right? Or rolling tables, or a single monster, anything you want. Or a game that's carried in Songs and Sagas, right? Do it, release it, publish it, that's it. Like you have like 2 months to do this. We already have like 33 members that have joined. More are going to join very, very soon. And also like, bit of a spoiler alert, we're currently working with like fantastic people to translate the game and the SRD in Spanish. So like kind of like an early announcement, but we're most probably going to for sure we're going to expand the jam to allow people from the Spanish speaking community to join in on the fun. But yeah, that's Songs and Sagas. I hope you like had fun listening to my rambling. And yeah, if you have any questions, like please don't hesitate to ask. I'm available on like all social media. You can find links in the description of the video. And yeah, like talk to you all soon. Peace.